Welcome to Around the Blockchain. I'm your host, DZ, coming in on a very special Bitcoin episode. We're going to talk about the recent price action. We're going to discuss, is it sound money? And discuss the future of Bitcoin. Is there one? A great lineup. One of the OGs in the Bitcoin space. Really excited to have him on today. It is Lamar Wilson holding it down. He was a little worried about his plain background, but hey, if you put a really funny comment, maybe he'll write down what you said. Who knows what maybe he'll put a price prediction behind him even. Then also we have Then we also have Thinking Crypto holding it down. I see that Bitcoin B behind you with that XRP and that Ethereum XRP army. If you're here, hit that like button. Please let us know. Also, with the wonderful lighting, it is Vic. You can follow him at Vic Laranja on Twitter. Holding it down, man. I'm loving the aesthetics you got going there. And Ben Armstrong, last but not least. Ben, congrats on the book, man. You have a book tour coming up. So if you haven't seen it, check your local city, and he might be coming near you.
I am coming near you. We're coming to we're going to 11 cities next week, starting next week, and then
all over the nation. So good chance you're gonna meet up with the Bit Squad there. But let's talk about Bitcoin. I want to lead with the price, and it has just been insane. I'm looking at the 7-day chart. You can see huge runs up. A lot of shorts were also liquidated in this time. If you look at the 1-month chart, we told you it was flat, boring. The longer it is flat and boring, the more exciting the payoff or drastic the payoff will be there at the end. And then I kind of doubled down on a prediction I made. I called, possibly a top. November 14th, it was 15,900. But I got this point from Ben. I want to give Ben credit here. At what point do we say this was a bottom if we don't retest? Would it be summer this year? Would it be the following winter? Ben, I agree with you. At a certain point, we have to admit, okay, Bitcoin hasn't bottomed out, and we haven't retested that bottom. At a certain timeline, just due to the 4-year cycle, due to the halving event, we kind of have to give it up. I'm kind of saying summer is kind of my point of no return. What are you looking at for your point of no return here?
Well, the Bitcoin cycles are worthless. They don't work. You look at them and it does the same thing every 4 years, and there's no way to predict the future based on what's worked completely in the past. So, guys, I don't know why everybody has to be the smartest person in the room and everybody's got to reinvent the wheel here. There's no reason to have, to come up with these new theories on how Bitcoin moves, guys. It's moved the same way every single cycle. And so, look, we said midterm elections, we should have the bottom right after the midterm elections. And then guess what happened? Within a week, all of a sudden we get a fresh bottom, and it stayed, and it didn't go lower, and then it went up. And I think what's really powerful is when you look at the U shape, where's my University of Miami people? The U shape that you got in the 2019 or 2018 to 2019 bear market is the exact same U shape that we've just seen. You get like kind of slow movement down, and you get a dramatic capitulation crash, and then it stays sideways for a while, and then we just had the return where it bounced back up. I don't think it's going to go back into this U shape again. That would have been from, I guess, about 17,000 down to 15.4 or whatever, 15.2, 15.4, depending on what exchange you were looking at for the bottom. But I just really think that like everybody wants to come up with this theory to where now things are different and they get credit for it. And it's just not true. Like, I mean, people saying there's no such thing as a 4-year cycle, or it's asinine to look at the chart and say that. So we're going to keep saying what's working. We call Bitcoin all year long. All year long, we nailed Bitcoin, and we nailed it again. We called the bottom. We're very confident that's the bottom now. Now that we returned back over 20,000, I'd say I'm 90% sure that's the bottom at this point. It's going to take a black swan capitulation event to get it down below there again. We're not naturally going to flow back below 15.4. And we were talking a little bit of, before we got going here on the show, I really believe that the thing that kept us out of the $10,000 to $14,000 range is the up to $8 billion worth of Bitcoin that's locked up on exchanges that people can't sell. Your retail investors are those that do ultimately crash the market. The institutions get it going. It's kind of like that lawnmower. You ever had that lawnmower you're a kid, you had to cut the grass. I had to cut the grass when I was a kid. My kids don't have to cut the grass. I have a landscaper. But regardless of that, okay, you pull it, you pull that thing, you pull it, and then eventually it just starts cranking along, right? Well, every time the institutions get ready to dump Bitcoin, they crank it, and then the retail, they eventually are the ones that cause it to go down to the bottom with capitulation. The retail investors couldn't do that this time because all their money was locked up and they were scared to make moves. And so because of that, I do think that, we have seen the bottom, and, I don't know when people are going to give it credit for it, but we'll
Yep.
take it.
I think that's a wonderful point. You name your exchange: 3AC, Celsius, FTX, Gemini, Earn. There's a lot of Bitcoin
Yep.
locked up. Vic, what do you think of that statement that one of the reasons we didn't go lower, didn't go below 15, didn't test these 12s or even 10 is all the Bitcoin that is locked up? People are unable to sell. I mean, do you agree with that? Disagree with that? What are your thoughts?
I don't know, man. It's tough to kind of predict kind of what is going to happen next. Like Ben said, we have these cycles every 4 years or so. But at the end of the day, we just don't really know. And if you try to time the market and you try to play every single variable, inevitably you're gonna lose. Most people trading, they end up losing, unfortunately. So it's really hard to kind of predict it. And there is a lot of Bitcoin in cold storage right now, a ton of it. But there's also a lot of Bitcoin that's just unable to be accessed or just completely lost forever that a lot of people don't really factor into the equation.
What is your first guesstimate on, how much Bitcoin is locked up? Because, we could go ahead and start at least a million. Let's assume Satoshi's wallet's not going to move. There's a lot of Bitcoin in the first 4 or 5 years of hard drives, 100,000 Bitcoin lost forever in this landfill. What percentage of Bitcoin do you think will never be retrieved?
Well, I think the estimate right now is around 3 to 4 million Bitcoins that are just completely lost, and I think we'll probably end up by the time everything's mined, because now it's actually worth a lot more than it was, 10 years ago. So, we'll probably end up around 4 million that is
Okay,
just
yeah,
completely
that's
gonna be locked
some
up.
hardware wallets out there. I know some people are quite upset. Shout out to Luke Stavely. I always bring him up. He lost, I think, half a Bitcoin 2014 as he was trying to get me into it. Kept me away. I was like, wow, it's that easy to lose. I don't know if I want to interact with this scammy sounding money with seed phrases. All right, Lamar, I want to touch on all these shorts that got wrecked. Huobi, I think, was the worst. OKX actually was the worst. They have $250 million in shorts got liquidated, $250 million, 125 million on Binance, Huobi 42 million, Aptos, lots of shorts getting wrecked there, all because Bitcoin surged about 22%. It went up 1,000. Let me open a short. Went up 1,000. Up, let me open a short. Went up 1,000. Let me open a short. What do you think is behind Bitcoin's sustained rally, and how come these shorts just can't seem to catch a break?
Well, here's the thing, man. I think a lot of things that people are not thinking about is that a lot of these exchanges don't even really have Bitcoin. A lot of these exchanges have paper Bitcoin. So they're basically allowing you to trade on something that they don't even have access to. And so therefore, like I even know for a fact, Huobi's volume is always kind of just like out there, right? So if you're out here shorting something and you're supposed to go out and buy it, if they don't have it, guess what happens? Now you putting undue pressure on the price going up because now they don't have enough supply to handle the demand that you need to have to cover the short. So that's why all of a sudden the price spikes immediately. I think a lot of things are happening like that in this space. And I think these paper Bitcoin, and that's one of the things that I think is happening from all of these exchanges getting caught up, is that a lot of this paper Bitcoin is about to go off the market. We know a lot of the real Bitcoin is sitting in cold storage around the world. Right, we know people are moving their Bitcoin, their real Bitcoin, off the exchanges and into cold storage. And so, what's going to happen? You're going to wind up seeing a huge supply squeeze, I believe, that's going to be when people want Bitcoin, there's not going to be any out there, and then people can't have exchanges that they can put the Bitcoin on to sell it off quickly. So though when that demand does that, it starts ramping up, you're going to start seeing crazy spikes, and I think that'll keep happening. I think the one thing that's keeping the price down, though, is of course the macro environment. A lot of people don't take into consideration the macro environment. Bitcoin has become an asset that is part of a lot of these institutional investors' portfolios. They play around with, they dabble in it. So the whole macro environment has a lot to do with what's going on with the prices. Real, it's not just what's going on in our little baby crypto world.
All right. When do you think that game of musical chairs begins with these exchanges? Do you think it's when retail jumps in? Is there any kind of price targets you're looking at where maybe 31K, everyone thinks it's back up and everyone's going to start self custodying, or is there maybe closer to 50K,
I think
25K?
I think there are a lot. Yeah, I think there are a lot of people sitting around 60, right? And this is what I've seen a lot of times, right? A lot of times what happens is people get into Bitcoin, they hear the price going up, they get in late, the price drops, they wind up getting trapped into Bitcoin because they don't want to sell at a price that's lower than what they bought it at. And so they sit and they'll hold it and they'll hold it. And to be honest, that's normally where you get a lot of the new Bitcoin maxis because now they're talking to their friends and family trying to get their price back up. This happens all the time. It's like that's the real cycle. The real cycle is you got trapped with very expensive Bitcoin. So I don't know what the price is. I've never said I said this before. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have chicken bones and stuff to try to figure out what the price is going to be. But I think that happens so often that now we're sitting in a position where if the price does start ratcheting up and people start to FOMO, we're going to run into problems because the supply is sitting in cold storage. And who do you put your money? Where do you put your money back on? What exchange? Like nobody trusts the exchanges right now. So if you want to sell it off, where are you going to sell it? We're in a weird space that we haven't been in before because of all of this, all these exchanges getting hit really hard.
Yeah, and it's like a domino effect. You just saw one and it just boom, boom, boom. One right after the other there. Now thinking crypto, we're talking about these shorts. They seem to can't catch a break. The longs, the bulls just keep winning over and over and over. What do you think is going to be the key event that finally gets a little bit of a cool down with the price? Is it another psychological level? Is it do we have to hit 25K first, or is there maybe some macro events or anything with maybe from the Fed or rates regulation you're looking at?
Yeah, so I'm cautiously optimistic. I like this move up. I think it was overdue because we were in such an oversold, fearful, bears getting greedy mode, right? And it was just a matter of time for Bitcoin to make a move upwards. The question is this a bear market rally where it tops out at like 22, 23 and then rolls over? Or are we in a retracement to 30 to 40K? And to your point of the Fed, I think macroeconomic factors are going to play a role here. The Fed has already talked about ramping down smaller increments of rate hikes, 25 basis points, and so forth. And if CPI continues to go down and the Fed continues to ramp down, markets start pricing those things in, and I think people are going to start getting more bullish. So I think we want to watch what Bitcoin's going to do over the next couple of weeks. Is this a slow, steady grind to that 30, 40K retracement? Or sometime next week or so, it rolls over and then we're back down to 17, 18K and it still keeps chopping sideways. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's that shop that gets people bored. And kind of to Lamar's point, when the retail comes in, when your family members ask you about buying Bitcoin, that's probably when you need to sell. When they send you a text message, say, "See, I told you it was a scam." That's when you need to double down and buy more. It seems to work for me thus far. All right, let's talk about the sound money debate. This was a Twitter user, Ultrasound Money, and Bitcoin proponent Dan Held got into it. Where both camps kind of making a fight off of this statement from Ultrasound Money. If cap supply Bitcoin, talking about the 21 million cap supply, if cap supply Bitcoin is sound money, then decreasing supply ETH is ultrasound. And of course, that brought out people from, all the woodworks there, a lot of arguments there. Some of the critics talking about Ethereum, well, your model has changed 7 times. And, Bitcoin proponents saying, so your model hasn't changed. Clearly, we're superior. Then you have other people saying, well, look at our supply. We have blocks where we're actually reducing the amount. So clearly deflationary. Better than inflationary. Ben, I want to ask you about this. This is it's a complex subject. There's a lot of working parts here. With the tail of time, though, 10 years, 50 years from now, I believe they'll both be around in some capacity. What will we say is the better roadmap here? Was it we knew what was happening from day one, 21 million supply, or is it Ethereum's model where, hey, we kind of shift as technology and the space evolves?
Well, I think people need to understand one very important principle. 21 million Bitcoin means nothing. And this is something that even the Bitcoin maximalists have a really hard time grasping because a lot of them, they just seem to regurgitate what they hear and they don't really understand exactly what they're talking about. Obviously, I'm not saying anybody on this panel is that right now, but there were a lot of people who made comments on one of my tweets a few weeks ago that really proved this. 21 million is a negligible number. It could be 42 million. And if it was 42 million and it had twice the block rewards from the beginning, it's the same product. If it had 10.5 million total and the block rewards were half, if they started at 25 instead of 50, you're going to end up with the same numbers. Now, there is like a little theory about why Satoshi chose 21 million, but 21 million by itself doesn't mean anything, right? Like, look at Yearn Finance. Yearn Finance has like 10,000 coins, right? That doesn't make it superior to Bitcoin because it's got 10,000 coins. The important part is the circulating supply compared to the total supply, and how the max supply, if there is one, and how those coins are brought into circulation. So what you're looking at with Ethereum is, they were adding, I think, about 3 to 4% every year of new coins, and it was uncapped. So that was like a big problem for Ethereum when you started looking at overall the total number that was going to cause it to be at. And you look at Bitcoin and you say, okay, well, Bitcoin is only adding X number every 4 years. We know exactly how many Bitcoin is going to be added to the supply. And of course, it's on a preset schedule, so it's not technically inflation, but everybody understands that it is inflation when you're bringing new supply in. So the point I'm making is this, is that right now, the Ethereum inflation rate is actually going to be lower than Bitcoin's for at least the next 10 years. That is at worst. Now, if you do get Ethereum going deflationary, like we've seen it in the last week, and you can also bet your bottom dollar or your bottom guay that at the top of the market, when everybody's back into NFTs and everybody's talking about metaverse and everybody's talking about blockchain gaming and everybody's using Ethereum and sending transactions, and the transaction fees are outrageous, like, it's definitely going to be inflationary or deflationary for months at that point. You're looking at, in my opinion, what I think are temporarily better tokenomics than what Bitcoin has. Like, if you're an institution, then you're looking at putting your money into something, and you're saying, and you're just basing it on the tokenomics. You're not basing it on, okay, yes, Bitcoin network is more decentralized. It changes every few years instead of every 6 months or whatever it is. Those changes are very small and minute. I understand those arguments for the long-term Bitcoin. I understand them. If you're looking at just tokenomics and you're looking at, holy crap, like, Ethereum actually is adding less to the supply percentage-wise than Bitcoin over the next 10 years, then in my opinion, it makes Ethereum a better proposition, does it matter if it's better than Bitcoin or not? Not necessarily. What does matter is it's caught up tremendously in the tokenomics that now gives institutions the same kind of confidence to put money into Ethereum as they would have to put it into Bitcoin. So I think that's all really interesting and really fascinating to look at. You guys know I'm on record. I do believe Ethereum will pass Bitcoin in market cap. I just think the potential is a lot bigger, and I don't think Ethereum's doing what Bitcoin is doing. I think there's only so many people want to invest in something that's a hedgeable asset. But when you look at the idea of a decentralized internet, like, that encompasses a lot more. So that's why I do think it's got a lot more potential. But, obviously you're not going to lose with either one, in my opinion. So
yeah, no, I would double down on that. I do think ETH will pass it eventually, largely due to the DeFi and the stable coins and all the value that ecosystem has there. Let's see, Vic, I want to ask you, Ben brought up a pretty good...
Lamar's seething over there. You see Lamar, he's seething.
All right, well, Lamar, I'll come back to you. What is your response to that? I know you probably have you're taking some umbrage here to ETH's tokenomics is better than Bitcoin. What's your rebuttal?
Man, listen, Ethereum doesn't know what it wants to be, right? Like, if you want to be a deflationary currency, you want to be sounder money, then it's a whole lot different value proposition than trying to be a utility. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, do you want people to use your coin and use it all the time, or do you want to try to fight and be the money of the world? It makes no sense. And I'm gonna tell you what, I just was in Ghana back in December, right? Was in Ghana, and I was in a room that there was a young guy, 23 years old. He was showing me on WhatsApp that they do over-the-counter exchanges. And guess what was not in that over-the-counter exchange for sound money? There was no Ethereum. You know what was in there? It was
Don't say Litecoin.
Bitcoin. Nope. Tether. Bitcoin, Tether, and their national currency, the Naira. Those are the three things they were trading to make sure they could move money around the country and outside of the country. There was no Ethereum in there. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, Ethereum doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think a lot of times, a lot of the Ethereum people that really love it a lot, they want to give it every single narrative it possibly can because that's what they want to fight with, right? When truthfully, it's supposed to just be, if it's supposed to be the world computer, then let it be the world computer, right? If it's supposed to be the world computer, you have all these things you can do on it. But I think the problem is that a lot of people are finding out that maybe the world computer thing isn't a great value proposition, especially when you're using it as a utility. Maybe they need to have all of these other things added to it, and it has to be ultrasound money and all these other marketing ploys to get it. The only thing I've ever seen that makes sense to use Ethereum for, and it's pretty boring, is these name services. I saw this guy hit me up and told me about a new one called the ODNS or something like that, but it was on Polygon, right? It was like ODNS or some kind of crazy thing. I seen ENS, I seen Unstoppable Domain. That makes sense because all it is, listen, Ethereum is just a database that allows you to store something, and you're paying money to store something in that database. That's the way I look at it. It's just technology in that way, right? So for me, like at the end of the day, me, I don't see any reason for Ethereum to have a higher value proposition than something that is actually moving money around the globe, not just in your local neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. You understand what I'm saying?
Dallas, Georgia. You know, I'm in the suburbs. No, you bring up a good point, and I'll actually agree with you on the Ethereum. You know, if it's supposed to be the world's computer, that's fine and dandy. I sent some Tether, it costs $1.80, but I've seen those $70 gas fees, $60 gas fees, $200 gas fee to minute NFT. Then all of a sudden, the world's computer narrative screeches to a grinding halt because that's obviously not sustainable.
Right.
Just to kind of agree with
So
you.
now
on
you
that
need
one.
a new narrative. You want to take the makeup off and be something else. It's ridiculous.
Let's hope those Polygon transactions are cheap. All right, Vic, you know, I think those great rebuttals for Ethereum, but what would you say to people who have misconceptions about Bitcoin? What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions? You know, the 21 million, you know, doesn't really necessarily need to be that number. I think that's a good one, but you know, maybe Bitcoin's dead at 2140. I mean, what's some of the major FUD that you want to deflate here?
Well, I think Bitcoin is honestly like the sound money if you compare it to fiat and gold, which is kind of the sound money argument, right? Ethereum, I guess, comes into the conversation off of the back of Bitcoin, and then they built this supercomputer spread across the globe where you can build games, you can build applications, you can do whatever you want, and it's more of like an oil rather than a money. And I think that was what Lamar was trying to say, but at the same time, it's so good at doing this, and it's getting better at doing this over time as well. That it's just become very valuable to a lot of people trying to build in this space or build something innovative that other people can't necessarily control or can't kick you offline. Like I don't need AWS to build this AI application if I can do it on Ethereum, and then I have an extra value add because it's on the blockchain as well. But in regards to Bitcoin just being sound money, I mean, it's pretty much like people compare it to gold for a reason, because you can't destroy it unless you, I guess, send it to an address that doesn't exist or you lose your seed phrase. Like it can't necessarily be destroyed. But the really good thing is like I can cross any border with my seed phrase in my mind. And I can't do that with a ton of gold or a ton of cash, but I can do that with Bitcoin. And I think that is one of the most remarkable things about it is I can literally just remember my Bitcoin and then leave, go somewhere else, log in, recover my wallet, and boom, it's right there. It's on the network. And one really cool thing about Bitcoin, because I think that was the basis of your question, was like what's something that a lot of people don't really know about it, is there's actually Bitcoin satellites. So they keep the network online if the miners on Earth ever, like if there's ever some massive nuclear explosion or some EMP that takes off the power grid or whatever, like the ledger is safe in space and it's never going to be knocked out of circulation unless those satellites also fall from the sky, which I don't think necessarily would happen, but more are popping up. So it's an extremely secure way of transferring your value. And I think that really what screwed us over this year was just the corruption. It was just a bunch of people that exploited a system, and it's because the entire market cap of cryptocurrency is so small compared to everything else that is traded around the world. Like people with a ton of money can just come in, these massive institutions, hedge funds can just come in and make power moves so easily because there's not as much value in that market. So I think that's just what we saw this year, and it totally wrecked retail. It wrecked how people perceive what we do and what we believe in. But fundamentally, at its core, Bitcoin is so sound. Like it's a remarkable technology, and I just always back it. I don't necessarily consider myself a maxi, but I love it.
Yeah, and you said exploiting a system. I must assume you mean campaign finance laws with giving dark money to political candidates, right? That's the
That's
system you
one
meant.
way,
Oh, that was
or
just
just
one of the
lying to
systems.
people and, taking people's money and going and buying real estate.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, no, who doesn't deserve
Hey.
a $15 million Bahama mansion? You know, I think Ben was on the lawn. All right, thinking crypto, what would you say to someone that is on the fence about buying some Bitcoin? You know, maybe they do think a EMP is, something very serious, or they see the price like, oh, I don't want to buy it now. It's just almost $16,000. I'll just wait for it to be in the teens again. I'm on the fence. What would you say to me?
You have the opportunity for the first time in history to be your own bank and to custody your own funds. And it's pretty revolutionary if you look at what has been birthed out of Bitcoin, even Ethereum and all the different blockchains out there. This is a revolutionary technology. And like Vic said, for the first time, we have sound money, hard money. And we're headed to that token economy, that digital economy, and the central banks are tokenizing fiat on the blockchain. And you're going to need a digital gold. Like the analog days of real gold and the precious metal, of course, we're now going to need a digital gold. And I believe central banks will eventually hold Bitcoin as a reserve currency, as they do with gold currently. It's going to take time, but this is the birth of a new industrial revolution, and this technology is here to stay. Real quick on the Ethereum note, though, I think folks are missing the fact that okay, Bitcoin is sound money, true peer-to-peer cash and currency system, but there are contracts, there are IDs, and all the transactions are going to happen on smart contracts. That is the future, and Ethereum is leading the charge there. Bitcoin does not have smart contract technology. Once again, I said it's great money, digital gold, but Ethereum will allow you to do things in the real world that Bitcoin can't right now. I know folks like Stacks are trying to build a smart layer contract or smart contract layer on top of Bitcoin, but it's not on par with Ethereum.
Yeah, and some of those diehards, they just don't want to see it change. They fight the progress slightly. All right, let's move on to the third section, brought to you by BC Vault. Make sure you check out bcvault.com. If you can crack it, you get a free Bitcoin. Speaking of Bitcoin, but let's talk about the future, and can't talk about the future without talking about the Great Reset. That's right, World Economic Forum. All the elites, they're heading to Davos this week. They're in Switzerland, surrounded by armed cars, telling you about the climate as they fly in with their private jets. 1,500 of them, if I'm not mistaken. But Nigel Green of the De Beer Group, he's currently there, and he is warning that their Great Reset agenda will be under threat and could even spectacularly fail unless they advance crypto regulation. From health, finance, energy, education, there are more and more subcommittees worried about blockchain technology and how they can control it, essentially. Now, Ben, why we've done some deep dives on the WEF, the World Economic Forum. You've done a deep dive on Klaus Schwab. What is the WEF, and why are they afraid of crypto? And what do you think they're going to try to do about it?
Yeah, well, actually, our 10 o'clock video tonight, that's what the whole
Hey,
thing's about.
hey, you
So
might
really
want to
can't
have
wait for you.
notifications on if you're watching at
I'm
home.
gonna turn on those noties. Keep those noties on the web. Listen, so here's the thing. Klaus Schwab, basically Satan is what I would say he is. He either is Satan himself or has made a deal with the devil. If you look where this guy has came to where he is now, it doesn't make sense. There's something people are missing in the story. There are some very interesting connections between him and his family and the Holocaust and Hitler and all kinds of powerful money behind him. When you look at that, it's very, very, very suspicious. And you know what? It's very interesting when you look back at the ideas of Hitler. The whole thing was, we want everyone to be a certain way. If you're not a certain way, then you don't fit what we're doing. It's the exact same thing the World Economic Forum is saying. They're saying we need to change the narrative to get people to be the way that we want them to be. We need people we need to persuade them that they need to be like us, like we want them to be. And yet, of course, they tell you you can't, everything you're doing is against the climate. And yet they're traveling in these private jets that have more, carbon emissions than anything else on Earth, basically. So, what the World Economic Forum wants is they want everybody to fit in a box. And you have this guy who came out with this idea that said, well, what's going on is this great reset is going to fail if they don't corral cryptocurrency. And so they're all about crypto regulation around the world. That's what they're going to be talking about. United States is number one, first, foremost, and primary, because basically whatever decisions we make based on, based on the crypto regulation, a lot of the countries will follow suit with that. You guys know we have a bill in the works. We're doing a lot of self-regulation ourselves, smart crypto regulation, not stuff the World Economic Forum would want. But here's what I would say, just to kind of sum this up. And like I said, I'm going to be talking about this a lot more in our video tonight. The Great Reset's going to fail. It's going to fail because of channels like this. There's channels out there like George Gammon, channels like Mark Moss. The information is out there. This is what they were not counting on. They want to have their little elite meetings and disperse their minions and have them go around the world and control narratives. You can't control a narrative when people know you're trying to control the narrative. That's exactly what we've seen with Twitter, with all these Twitter files. Everybody knew this stuff was going on. We're not dummies. Just because you tell us it's not going on doesn't mean it's not going on, and we know that. So I do believe that either way it's going to fail, and I can't wait to see Klaus's face. They're already starting to shift the narrative, by the way. The narrative is already moving from Great Reset to Fourth Industrial Revolution. They're already starting to change their narratives around things. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting as they rebrand this over the years, and they just try to stay one step ahead. But I will not eat the crickets. I refuse.
No.
All right,
Well,
Lamar.
good. I had them at the zoo one time.
Yeah, it's chocolate covered. It's okay.
Yeah.
It got to be chocolate covered at least. All right, Lamar. People say, hey, Bitcoin can't be censored. It's resistant to anything you might try to throw at it. But what if the World Economic Forum? What if they just leaned on internet service providers to ban anything dealing with the Bitcoin network? I mean, could that kill Bitcoin? Can anything kill Bitcoin?
Listen, man, people don't understand this, but number one, my man said it earlier. He said there are actual nodes in outer space, so you have satellites. You're not going to stop that, right? You're not going to be able to stop an up and down link from there. You can also send a Bitcoin transaction as long as someone else has access to the network. You can send a Bitcoin transaction just by reading out the actual hex, right, of the transaction itself. So you can do it over ham radio, so they can't stop you there. And they would have to stop every ISP. And then you have networks like Tor, right? And another thing is that people are also creating mesh networks that don't even require the use of the ISPs. So they're like, Bitcoin is unstoppable. At every time that someone throws something at Bitcoin, they will figure it out. Like, somebody's going to figure out how to continue to send transactions. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't even think that any of this stuff is real. That's normally the biggest fear from a lot of outsiders or no coiners, is like, what happens if the government stops it? I'm going to tell you what, if the government wanted to stop it, it would be stopped. The fact that a country like China, that controls everything in their country for the most part, can't stop people from mining, even though there's a mining ban in China. And we know a lot of the mining dropped, but then mining came back there again. The fact that they can't stop the mining of Bitcoin in a country like China, just so that governments around the world can't get together and stop people from doing anything with Bitcoin. So get that thought and idea out of your mind altogether. That's crazy.
All right. Well, thinking crypto, we were talking about the Ethereum virtual machine and, how it's interconnected, but we're moving headlong into an interconnected world, potentially, a digital gold, a lot of interconnectivity here. Is a one world order, is that essentially inevitable in your opinion?
I think so. And blockchain, unfortunately, is going to connect it to allow us to have that one world order and global economy. I think we're seeing the groundwork being laid here, and all these folks going to Davos, right? The meeting of the minds there, and a big agenda item is going to be CBDCs and how those are going to be interoperable and which economies they're going to flow through. So I think that's the future. And I think, though, it's smoke and mirrors what the World Economic Forum and these folks have been saying about Bitcoin. They can't stop Bitcoin. If they wanted to, they could have already in the early days, but Bitcoin has matured and grown. And I think when we see big institutional investors like BlackRock launching a Bitcoin spot trust last year in August, right away you see, why would they be doing that if there's a risk, right? A big part of their job is to protect wealth and also grow it. If you're going to put your clients' funds in Bitcoin, you got BNY Mellon and NASDAQ and Fidelity all entering, and despite we don't have the full clear regulations, we don't have a Bitcoin spot ETF, they know. They know there's no ban coming. And I think that's a signal. I think the World Economic Forum putting out FUD is smoke and mirrors to allow these institutional players to take a position, and then they can easily flip the narrative. I believe, like I said before, Bitcoin will be held by central banks as a reserve currency along with gold, not the only reserve currency, and that's going to be the future. And CBDCs are going to be flowing through the economy.
All right. Now, Vic, I saw you nodding when we were talking about CBDCs. Do you think that Bitcoin, as CBDCs get more adoption, I see two directions. One is similar to China, where they force you to have a CBDC usable wallet that they can track, but better not have any Bitcoin on there, obviously not connect to the Bitcoin network. Or will it create more people getting into Bitcoin because now they're interacting with a Web3 wallet? What direction do you see it going?
Yeah, you're definitely going to have two split parties because there's going to be people who want to resist the CBDC because they understand the potential threat of a CBDC, and then you have the other side of people who are just the common person who doesn't look into this stuff. They do their thing. They go home. They watch CNN. They just fit in, and they're the ones that are just going to be like, oh well, the government gave me $300 of free money in the CBDC or the digital dollar, whatever they're going to call it, and so I'm cool with it. Hey, my credit card's already digital. It's all digital money to me anyway. Like, they don't really understand like the fundamental threat of what a CBDC is and the actual control of what a CBDC can do. Like, if the government wants your taxes, they're just going to take it. Like, it's their money. They designed it. They coded it. They can just program it to do whatever the hell they want, right? That's what a CBDC for these guys, the World Economic Forum, the political or financial elite. Like, this is what they want, right? Because the World Economic Forum really, and as Ben said, like, I fully agree, Klaus Schwab is literally a Bond villain. The dude's the devil. He just wants to rule the world. But I think there's people behind him too. Like, I don't think he's top of the food chain guy. I think there's many wealthier people behind him, and he might just be kind of a puppet in all of this. But really, they want to control three things. They want to control the money, which we're talking about here. They want to control the food. They want to control energy. They control all three of these things, then they rule the world. Simple as that. They can just push the levers whichever way they want to get whatever result they want in the Western world. And I do think that if a CBDC is successfully installed in our Western society and it replaces the US dollar, it will be presented as just a clean transition from the USD. You won't really notice anything until people start to, for some reason, revolt in any way. Like we saw in Canada last year with the truckers. Like, I'm Canadian, so I got a front row seat at what happened with the truckers and Justin Trudeau and this battle that ensued where these truckers, if you guys don't know, which I'm sure you do, there was a huge protest over vaccines and over mask mandates where thousands and thousands of truckers went to Ottawa, to our capital, and just parked middle of downtown, honked their horns, and they were there for weeks. And Justin Trudeau, who's the Prime Minister of Canada, he called them terrorists. He called them misogynists. He locked their bank accounts. He took he controlled all the central crypto exchanges in Canada, and he got them to find out what wallet addresses they have and ban those wallet addresses from exchanges, completely blacklisting these people, calling them terrorists, when obviously that's just tyrannical leadership. Like, that is not what we want in our office. But the funny thing about Justin Trudeau is that he is just a minion of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab has openly said that he controls the half of the cabinet in Canada. So our political system's super corrupt by WEF. Justin Trudeau is definitely in Switzerland right now, flying his private jet, spending taxpayer money, probably $15,000 hotel rooms. Just great stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah, we do stand with the truckers. Yeah, I do want to say we stand with the truckers, and Davos 2,658 attendees plus their minions. That's just 2,600 Groots. We don't know how many minions are floating around, hiding in the bushes there. But that is all we have time for. It was a fantastic episode. Hit that like button if you like these special episodes. We'll do some more. This was our Bitcoin one, and Lamar ended up taking it down. Now, you did say you don't have a secret formula for the price. I thought I saw it just off camera on your whiteboard. Didn't you have, the exact top for the next cycle? But feel free, Lamar, leave us with some parting thoughts. If you wanted to give us a prediction.
Listen, everybody, man. Listen, it's such a pleasure being on here today. Of course, there's only one, and there's only one big bar. make sure that even during these times of down cycles and bear markets, that if you really want to get into Bitcoin, just dollar cost average. Use some money you can afford to lose. Use your Starbucks money, your crab legs money. Go get you some Bitcoin, stack and chill, man. Just stack and chill. So yeah, man, thank y'all for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
DCA, it is the way. That is all we got time for today. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to everybody's channel. Till next time, BitSquad.